Sometimes life feels stuck. You tell yourself, I'm gonna change. I'm gonna fix everything. You write goals, make plans, maybe even buy new workout shoes or start a new journal. But just a few days later, you're right back where you started. And then comes the guilt. Maybe I'm not strong enough. Maybe I'm just lazy. Maybe this is just who I am. But here's the truth. There's nothing wrong with you. You're just following the wrong system. That's exactly where James Clear's Atomic Habits comes in. It's not about massive overnight transformations. It's not about motivation hacks or willpower games. It's about tiny daily decisions. Tiny habits that feel like nothing in the moment. But over time, they change everything. And it all begins with one powerful truth, the 1% rule. Have you ever felt like you're trying so hard, and still nothing is changing? You work, you push, you stay up late, you try again. But it feels like your life is stuck in the same place. That's the frustration of invisible progress. James Clear says it's not that your efforts aren't working. It's just that change is happening silently, underground, until one day, it explodes. Imagine this. If you get just 1% better each day, by the end of the year you're not 10% better. You're 37 times better than who you were. That's the power of compounding. It doesn't feel exciting. In fact, it feels boring. So boring, you won't even notice it's working. But it is. Progress is like an ice cube sitting in a freezing room. The room is at -5 degrees Celsius, then -4, -3, -2, -1, still nothing. Then it hits 0 degrees Celsius, and suddenly the ice starts to melt. We think the magic happened at 0 degrees Celsius, but the truth is, every degree before that was the magic. That's how habits work. They feel invisible, they feel pointless, until one day they change your life. James Clear says, habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. Just like money grows with interest, your life grows with habits. Small wins, small actions, small choices, done again and again and again. Reading one page, putting your phone away for 30 minutes, choosing water over soda, waking up 10 minutes earlier. These are not just habits, they are votes for the person you're becoming. But the problem is, we focus too much on results. We want to lose weight, make more money, be successful. But we rarely ask ourselves, what kind of person am I becoming every single day? Because your identity isn't built in a single moment. It's built through your choices, through the habits you repeat. James Clear explains that if you improve just a little every day, success becomes inevitable. But if you ignore your small decisions every day, failure becomes guaranteed. Because bad habits compound too. Stress, procrastination, laziness, guilt. They all multiply quietly, until one day they bury you. But here's the good news. Every single day, you get another chance. A fresh vote, a new decision, one small step in the right direction. Change doesn't come overnight. But it does come every night, when you choose growth over comfort, when you silence your doubts and do that one small thing, when you say to yourself, I don't need to be perfect today, I just need to be 1% better. Because success is not one big moment. It's a quiet series of small, private wins that no one claps for, until they do. So the next time you feel like it's not enough, the next time your progress feels too slow, remind yourself, you're not stuck. You're just building. And one day, that 1% will turn into everything you've ever dreamed of. If this message hit home, drop a comment that says, I choose 1% better today. Because that small decision could change your entire life. And don't forget to subscribe to ThinkNest, because here we don't just share ideas, we rewrite your identity. One day, one habit, 1% at a time. We all want to change, but most of us start from the wrong place. We try to change the outcome, lose weight, earn more, feel better. So we set goals, make plans, download apps. And yet, just a few weeks later, we fall back into the same old patterns. Why? James Clear says the problem isn't your goal. The problem is where you begin. You tried to change your habits, but you didn't change the person behind those habits. You tried to act differently, but you still saw yourself the same. Real change begins not with what you want to do, but with who you believe you are. There are 3 layers to behavior change. The outer layer is outcomes, what you want to achieve. The middle layer is process, what you do to get there. But at the very center is identity, who you believe yourself to be. And unless you change that, your core beliefs, your habits, will always bounce back to the old you. Think of someone who's trying to quit smoking. When offered a cigarette, they say, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." That's a goal-based response. But listen to this instead. "No thanks, I'm not a smoker." That's identity. That's transformation. Because real change isn't about doing something different. It's about becoming someone new. Your habits are a reflection of your identity. And your identity is shaped by your habits. It's a cycle. What you do reinforces who you are, and who you are shapes what you do. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you want to become. When you read a page, you're voting to be a reader. When you go to the gym, you're voting to be a disciplined person. When you turn down that extra drink, you're voting to be someone who respects their body. No single vote changes your identity. But as the votes pile up, your identity begins to shift. If you want real, lasting change, don't start with what you want to achieve. Start with who you want to become. Don't say, "I want to read more." Say, "I'm a reader." Because when your identity changes, your behavior naturally follows. Now, you're not reading to finish a book. You're reading because it's part of who you are. Now, you're not working out for a beach body. You're training because you're an athlete at heart. That's the key. That's where lasting transformation happens. It's not about behavior modification. It's about identity redefinition. Every time you choose the higher road, the better habit, the intentional path, you're proving something to yourself. I am this kind of person. And over time, those tiny proofs add up. They become belief. And belief becomes identity. And identity becomes your destiny. So ask yourself this. Don't ask, "What do I want to do?" Ask, "Who do I want to become?" Because once that's clear, every habit becomes an act of alignment. Every choice becomes a vote. And every day becomes a step closer to your truest self. Change isn't about achieving more. It's about becoming more. And that begins when you stop chasing outcomes and start building identity. Everyone wants to change, but very few know how to begin the right way. How many times have you made a promise to yourself? I'll start waking up early. I'll hit the gym every day. I'll stop scrolling so much. And yet, a few days go by, and everything feels the same. Nothing changes. The old habits return, like they never left. Why? Because we think change is about willpower or motivation, but it's not. James Clear reveals something deeper. Habits are a science, and behind every habit, good or bad, there's a system, a loop, a hidden pattern that decides who we become. This system has 4 simple steps, and once you understand them, you can rebuild your life, one small behavior at a time. It starts with a cue, a signal that triggers your brain to begin a routine. You walk into your living room, and the TV remote ends up in your hand. You feel bored, and suddenly your phone lights up. Next comes the craving, not the action itself, but the feeling it gives you. You don't just want to scroll, you want distraction. You don't just want food, you want comfort. Then comes the response, the actual behavior. You click, you eat, you smoke. Not because you're weak, but because your brain is following the loop. And finally, the reward. That tiny hit of pleasure. That quick release. And with every reward, your brain whispers, "Let's do that again." That's how habits are built. Cue, craving, response, reward. Again and again and again. It becomes invisible, automatic, and without realizing it, you're living in a cycle you never consciously chose. But here's the truth, that same loop can be rebuilt. If you want to break bad habits or build powerful new ones, you don't need motivation. You need to design the loop. Make the cue obvious. Make the craving attractive. Make the response easy. Make the reward satisfying. Let's say you want to build a reading habit. Put the book next to your pillow. Make it obvious. Choose a book you genuinely enjoy. Make it attractive. Start with just 2 pages. Make it easy. Celebrate with a cup of coffee after. Make it satisfying. This is how behavior becomes identity. You're not trying to read a book, you're becoming a reader. That's the magic of small, intentional habits. They don't just change your actions, they change how you see yourself. Most people chase goals, but goals are just the destination. Systems are the engine. James Clear says, "You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems." Your environment, your routines, your design. So if you want to change your life, don't focus on the finish line. Focus on the structure that carries you there. Every time you repeat a habit, you're casting a vote for the kind of person you want to become. You're not just checking off tasks, you're building identity. And one day, you'll look in the mirror and realize you became what you practiced. So now the question is, what habit will you start building today?
Have you ever felt that something was off, but you just couldn't explain why? James Clear shares the story of a paramedic at a crowded party. Everything looked normal. People were laughing. Music was loud. But then, across the room, he saw a man just standing there. Nothing seemed wrong, except something didn't feel right. The color of the man's skin was just slightly off. A faint bluish tone, not enough for others to notice, but enough for someone trained to see the invisible. The paramedic rushed over. "Call 911 now." Moments later, the man collapsed. Heart attack. He survived, only because someone had the awareness to see what others missed. That's the power of observation, of being awake in a world running on autopilot. Most of us live our days without noticing our behaviors. We pick up our phones before we blink. We open the fridge, not because we're hungry, but because we're bored. We scroll, snack, smoke, without even thinking. You can't change a habit you don't even know exists. Awareness is the first step. Until you become the observer of your own behavior, you will remain the prisoner of your patterns. James suggests building a habit scorecard. Write down every little thing you do throughout your day, from the moment you wake up to the moment you sleep. Then ask yourself, does this habit make me stronger or weaker? Don't judge, don't shame, just see. Because change never begins in action. It begins in awareness. The man survived because someone noticed what others didn't. You can save yourself too, but only if you're willing to finally look. I want to start meditating someday. I need to read more. Yeah, I should eat better. Soon. We say these things all the time, but someday never shows up on the calendar. The truth is, wanting to change means nothing until you plan how. This is what James Clear calls implementation intentions. Don't say, "I'll meditate more." Say, "I'll meditate at 7 a.m. in my bedroom for 2 minutes." Don't say, "I'll read more." Say, "I'll read 5 pages before bed at 10 p.m. Why does this work? Because vague plans lead to vague behaviors. And your brain doesn't follow intentions. It follows instructions. Implementation intentions create clear pathways for behavior. They answer the questions your brain needs to take action. When will I do it? Where will I do it? How long? Once your brain sees the cue, it knows what to do. No hesitation. No resistance. To do. No hesitation. No resistance. Habits don't grow in motivation. They grow in clarity. So if you want to build a new habit, don't wish. Design. Anchor your behavior to a time and place, and let repetition do the rest. We chase motivation like it's magic. We watch YouTube videos, save inspirational quotes, wait for the perfect moment when we feel ready. But days pass, weeks pass, and change still feels far away. James Clear says something powerful. Motivation is overrated. Environment is everything. If every time you walk into the kitchen, chips are on the counter, you'll eat them. If your phone is next to your bed, screen glowing, you'll scroll for hours. Because humans are not just creatures of will. We are creatures of context. The truth is, we don't rise to our level of motivation. We fall to the level of our environment. So if you want better habits, don't fight yourself. Fix your surroundings. Want to read more? Put the book on your pillow. Want to use your phone less? Delete the apps or keep the phone in another room. Want to eat healthier? Don't bring junk into the house. This isn't weakness. This is wisdom. Your environment is shaping your choices every moment, even when you're not aware of it. So design it. Control it. Let your space become your secret weapon. Because the best habits don't come from effort. They come from alignment. We admire discipline. We glorify self-control. We want to be the kind of person who resists temptation. But here's the truth. The most disciplined people rarely need to use discipline at all. James Clear says, the best way to win a battle is to never enter it. In other words, remove the cue. If the snack isn't in the house, you won't eat it. If the phone's not in the room, you won't scroll at 2 a.m. If the remote's not near the couch, you won't start another mindless Netflix binge. The secret to self-control is not willpower, it's design. Stop setting yourself on fire and then blaming your inability to resist the heat. Just remove the match. Don't try to be stronger than your urges. Be smarter than your environment. If there's no trigger, there's no action. If there's no cue, the habit never begins. True self-control isn't about being heroic. It's about being wise and knowing that the best way to master temptation is to make sure you never have to face it in the first place. All change begins in awareness, but awareness without action is just observation. So now it's time to apply the first law. Make it obvious. There's something inside you, something that pulls you toward the screen. The snack that pulls you toward the screen. The snack, the scroll. It's not weakness. It's not laziness. It's dopamine. The brain doesn't just release dopamine when you receive a reward. It releases it when you anticipate one. It's not the cigarette. It's the spark of lighting it. Not the cookie, but the smell of it in the oven. Not the likes, but the notification buzz before you open the app. That's what makes habits attractive. James Clear explains, the more we anticipate pleasure, the more we chase the behavior that brings it. And if we want to build better habits, we need to use this trigger to our advantage. You don't just build a good habit by doing it. You make it irresistible by pairing it with something you already love. This is called temptation bundling. Want to exercise? Only listen to your favorite podcast while working out. Want to do chores? Only let yourself binge that show while folding laundry. Want to build a writing habit? Reward yourself with coffee after 10 minutes of focused writing. You're not forcing yourself. You're training your brain to connect effort with pleasure. Because when the cue excites you, the habit no longer feels like a chore. It becomes a craving. So don't just build better habits. Build better feelings around those habits. Because behavior that feels good, repeats. We like to believe we're independent, that our choices are our own. But if you look closer, you'll see, we are mirrors, reflections of the people around us. We imitate three groups the most: the close, family, friends; the many, society, culture; and the powerful, influencers, role models. You eat how your friends eat. You talk how your circle talks. You rise, or fall, depending on the expectations of your tribe. It's not just behavior, it's belonging. James Clear says, one of the deepest human desires is to belong, and we'll often change our habits to fit in, even if they go against our goals. So if you want to change your life, change your circle, not to judge them, but to design your future. Surround yourself with people who already live your desired identity. Want to run? Join runners. Want to write? Be around writers. Want to grow? Be with people who are not afraid to fail. Because when growth is normal in your tribe, success becomes inevitable. Belong to a community where the behavior you admire, you don't rise to the level of your motivation. You fall to the level of your systems. It's okay to miss one workout. It's okay to skip one journal entry. Just never skip twice. Because habits are built in the act of returning. Not when you feel like it, but when you don't. Not when it's easy, but when it's boring. Repetition beats perfection. Every single time. Want to become a writer? Write badly. Every day. Want to get stronger? Show up to the gym, even if you're tired. Want to become mindful? Sit in silence, even when your mind screams. Because the goal isn't perfection. It's identity. You're not trying to build a perfect record. You're proving to yourself, I am this kind of person. And every repetition is another vote, another brick, another thread in the story you're weaving, quietly, daily, deeply. So walk slowly if you must. Just never walk backwards. Habits don't change when you force them. They change when they feel worth wanting. And that's the power of part 3. Make it attractive. Speech balloon, drop this in the comments. I'm aligning my habits with who I choose to become. And subscribe to ThinkNest. Because here, we don't just summarize books. We rewrite your narrative. One silent, atomic shift at a time is the default. Because in the end, your identity is not just what you believe, it's who you walk with. Every bad habit has a reason, but we rarely ask why. Why do we scroll endlessly? Why do we eat when we're not hungry? Why do we procrastinate when we know the deadline is near? James Clear reveals something few want to face. Most bad habits are just solutions to emotional needs. We check our phones to escape boredom. We overeat to soothe stress. We avoid tasks to numb the fear of failure. The problem isn't the habit, it's the pain underneath. So instead of asking, why am I like this? Ask, what am I trying to soothe? What am I trying to avoid? Because once you find the craving behind the behavior, you can create a better solution. You don't fix bad habits by removing them. You replace them. Your mind doesn't want to stop feeling good. It just needs a healthier way to get there. So if your bad habit is a bandage, then healing begins when you listen to your wound. That's where transformation starts. Not in resistance, but in understanding. You don't need perfect days. You need consistent ones. We get caught up in streaks, in apps, in goals. We want to crush it every single day. But real change isn't loud. It's quiet. It's not sexy. It's steady. James Clear says,